Welcome back to the Girls Gone Sporty live cooking show. This cooking show takes place every Thursday night at 8 o'clock p.m. unless something comes up. So tonight's meal is a hearty soup. I don't know about where you are, but it is getting cold outside again here in Texas. And that's disappointing because we're in Texas. It shouldn't be this cold, but it is. So I decided earlier this week to create a new type of soup. I've kind of spent on the taco soups that I've been creating. So I was inspired by a beef and vegetable soup that I used to get at Super Salads when I was like in high school. And this isn't the same, but it's got some of the same components. So I wanted to cut down a little bit on the total film time. I know some of these have gone pretty long. So what I did was I went ahead and browned 1 pound of grass-fed, organic, hormone-free beef with about 1.5 yellow onions so that they're nice and sauteed. So that part is already done in the pot, good to go. Awesome sauce. And I already roasted up about 4 small potatoes, small kind of baking potato style potatoes in the oven earlier, and I'll get to how to do that in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and turn up the heat on this burner. The meat is already browned. The onions are already whipped up. So not actually whipped up, they're already cut and put in there and browned with the beef. But, so what I'm gonna do, as this starts heating up, this could not be easier. Because the hard work's done, because the meat is already browned, because the potatoes are already roasted, the next step is taking beef broth, and this is an organic beef broth just from my local grocery store. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pour some of that right in there. Let that start to get heated. And I realized the other night when I made this, I mean, it makes a lot of soup and there's a lot of veggies in it, and it does verge on stew-like, which is great. But if you like your soup to be a little bit more soupy and less stewy, you might want to add a little bit more water or a little bit more broth. I have some chicken broth. I didn't have 2 beef broths, but I have some chicken broth that I might add as well if needed. But this is, let's see, 32 ounces of beef broth right there. So go ahead and stir that up a little bit. Just so you know, when I browned the beef and the onions, I did put some garlic powder in there. I put some, everything that's right here, garlic powder, crushed red peppers, and some chili powder, just to give that meat a little bit of flavor. I didn't go overboard on any of them, just a couple pinches of each in there as the meat was browning. So I'm gonna go ahead and let that start to get hot a little bit more and talk to you about the roasted potatoes. Now the roasted potatoes couldn't be easier to make. Oven at 475, cut up your potatoes into little, little pieces like so, and then put them on a pan, put some olive oil on the pan, put some salt, put some pepper. I put a little bit of garlic powder on there. Again, nothing crazy, a little bit of chili powder, and then I just mixed the whole thing up on the pan, got my hands dirty, no problem there, and popped it in the oven, and then just kind of kept an eye on it. Because they're smaller pieces and because they're white potatoes and not sweet potatoes, they take a little bit less time to roast up than, I make a lot of sweet potato fries, and so those take like 45 minutes or so. This was more like 25 to 35 minutes to get them nice and roasted. So we're not going to do anything with those quite yet, but that's how you roast up your potatoes. So while they're roasting, just so you know, you might want to kind of stir them around a little bit a couple times to make sure they get nice and roasted on all sides. So next up, and the soup that I was inspired by, that one from Super Salad from forever ago that I used to eat, they probably still offer it, I don't even know. But it had lots of veggies in it, in addition to the potatoes and the beef. And I don't think they had roasted potatoes in there. I'm pretty sure it was just, your standard potato and a soup. But so I am going to go ahead and add green beans, because I know that theirs had green beans. And I'm just pouring the whole thing in there, not even worrying about the draining off the water. And that's, again, to provide it with a little bit more of a soupy consistency there at the end. So these are organic green beans. I try to get organic when and where and how I can. So that's that. So just go ahead and stir that up a little bit more. Then you take your tomatoes, your diced tomatoes, and you do the same thing. So these are the only diced tomatoes like I ever eat. They're store brand tomatoes, but they have olive oil and garlic in them. So they're really flavorful and really good. So I will dump those in there too. So you're getting like 7 servings worth of tomatoes in here, like 7 servings worth of green beans in here. That's a lot of veggies. You've got about 1.5 onions in here, and already this soup is getting thick and it's getting good. One thing that I'm not adding to this soup that I think I remember being in the soup from Super Salads, I'm pretty sure they had carrots and peas in theirs. I didn't have carrots or peas on hand when I made this the first time earlier in the week, so I figured I'd just stick with what I know. So this is what we've got going on. So no carrots and peas this time. If you love carrots and peas, and if you think that a vegetable beef soup is just not a vegetable beef soup without them, by all means, add some peas and carrots. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is go ahead and take those roasted potatoes, and they're gonna give this soup a very different flavor, because it's not just your potatoes. They definitely have a flavor, and they add a flavor to the soup and the broth, and it's good. So go ahead and add that in there too. And at this point, there's not much left to do. I mean, how simple is this? So you want that to start getting hot. And while it does, that's where we start adding some of our spices. So this is sage, rubbed sage. So I'm just gonna sprinkle about a pinch or so of that in there. And then we've got rosemary, which goes very nicely with that beef and those roasted potatoes. So we're gonna put some rosemary in there. And I'm not measuring, I know some people hate that, but we're talking just a little bit in the center of your hand, not a whole lot. Get that mixed up. And then I've got thyme, a little bit of thyme. I really like the flavor of thyme. I really like the flavor of rosemary, and I like them in this kind of mix of beef and potatoes again. Gives it a nice hearty flavor. So I'm gonna mix that in there. So again, a little bit of sage, a little bit of rosemary, a little bit of thyme. And I'm gonna taste it here in a second, because the other day, it was at this point that I had basically made the soup, and I tasted it and I was like, it's good, but it's missing something. And I wasn't sure what it was missing. I felt like it needed a little bit of a tang or a little bit of a kick, but not necessarily a hot, like spice heat kick, but more of a tang. And wasn't really sure where to go with it, and I ended up adding paprika. Gave it a really nice flavor, really kind of rounded things out. I thought I liked it. So I've got my paprika here, but I also was thinking the other day that it was missing lime. That may be wrong. It may not have been missing lime, but I'm gonna taste this here in a second and see what I think about the flavor. And you can see it's starting to get a little bit hot there. Take a little bit of a taste. So again, that's good, but it's a little bit smooth. A little bit of a smooth flavor, and I want a little tang. You might like it this way, so if you do, by all means, you don't need to add anything else. I'm gonna go ahead and add a little paprika, because why mess with something that worked before? So again, a little bit right there. Add a little bit more. So we're talking a teaspoon, a couple teaspoons, somewhere in there. I'm gonna mix that up again, give it another little taste, and maybe add some lime, just for kicks. And I already like that flavor a little bit more. I'm gonna give it a little bit more paprika. Oops. And we're almost done. How easy is this? Okay, so last step. I'm gonna hold off on the lime juice this time because I don't know what that'll do to the soup. It's an option. If you want a little more of a kick, maybe add it into individual bowls to give it a test. But all that's left, I took probably about 2 cups of organic spinach and just sliced it up. Just plop it there on top. Give it a little bit of a stir. You want it to start, you know, softening up a little bit more. You don't necessarily want it to get real like soggy, but a little bit wilted. Take on a nice, real pretty green color. So again, we've got our tomatoes, we've got our green beans, we've got our spinach, we've got our roasted potatoes, we've got our beef, we've got our beef broth. And at this point, you can either add more broth, add more water, leave it as is. If you let it sit on the stove a little bit more, it'll thicken up a little bit more as well. So that is where we're at. I'm gonna let it get just a hair more cooked through, meaning the spinach, just a little bit more wilted there. And then I'm gonna serve myself a bowl because this is my dinner tonight. Yay. So that couldn't be easier soup. The roasting of the potatoes takes a little while, and of course the browning of the meat takes a little while, but overall, the whole process is very simple. It's a crowd pleaser, so by all means, whip it up yourself, enjoy it at home, stay warm wherever you're at, and we will see you back next Thursday at 8 p.m. Central, and as always, please subscribe to the Girls Gone Sporty YouTube channel. Thanks so much. Peace.